Welcome to a presentation for Activate, a path towards a resilient future for Cyprus, developed by the Ecolife Element Cyprus. Let us identify some of the challenges that we are facing as a global community. Climate change. Climate change is giving us extreme and predictable weather, melting ice caps, rise in atmospheric temperature, sea level rise, causing extreme dryness or extreme flooding in different areas of the world, and these are projected to reduce future harvests in much of the world. The UN estimates upward of 50 million climate change refugees over the next 10 years. Ocean acidification. The more CO2 we have in the atmosphere, the more CO2 ends up being absorbed by the oceans. This in turn lowers the ocean's pH, becoming more acid. This is causing dissolving of coral reefs, irrational behavior of marine life, loss of biodiversity in marine life, more thermal stratification. This leads to phytoplankton producing less oxygen. Population increase. Every 10 to 12 years, the world population increases by 1 billion. The African continent, for example, is expected to double its population by 2050 to 2.4 billion people, and this will be the largest workforce worldwide. The social divide. In the present social system, there is a widening gap between wealthy and poor, which can lead to social tensions, fragmentation among countries, separation between people within a social system. Food productivity. Modern agricultural productivity growth is 1 to 2% per year. Today, we already produce enough food for 9 to 10 billion people. Modern agricultural techniques are a major contributor to pollution. Worldwide, modern agriculture uses on average 70% of our fresh water. Water. Water is life. Most life on Earth depends on water. 98% of water is in our oceans. Only 0.37% of water on the Earth is potable. We are polluting fresh water sources, and our groundwater is being pumped faster than we can recover it. Natural resources. Our current consumption of natural resources is 1.5 times their regeneration capacity. Non-regenerative resources are being depleted. For example, indium, used in computer touchscreens, 13 years. Copper, 61 years. Tin, 40 years. Uranium, 59 years. Coal, 110 years. Loss of biodiversity. According to the World Wildlife Fund, they state that in the last 40 years we have lost 50% of the world's wildlife. Meanwhile, 93% of our sea diversity has also been lost in the last 80 years. The loss of biodiversity limits our ability to keep a varied diet that sustains health, and also our options for organic and natural cures. These global changes will also impact Cyprus in the coming years. Let us introduce the island of Cyprus. We are in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, an island of approximately 9,000 square kilometers, of which about a third are occupied. It is also the third largest island in the Mediterranean Sea. Currently a population of about 1 million people with about 2.5 million tourists annually. In 1960, we received our independence from the British with the provision of 2 sovereign bases seen above as Akrotiri and Dikelia. Communal strife led to separation of the 2 ethnic communities, the Greek Cypriot and the Turkish Cypriots. In 1974, a coup against the president led to Turkey invading the island. Today, the capital, Nicosia, remains the last divided capital in the world. Recent talks indicate hope for a solution. The environmental and economical challenges facing Cyprus today. Water capture. Of great importance. Currently, there is flooding and runoff into the sea. It is estimated around 86% of the water that lands on the island is lost to evaporation or transpiration. Although there are over 100 dams, in the worst of years they're found empty, and Cyprus has had to import water from Greece by tanker. Water management. Water management is very important to keep what water resources we have locally available. Unfortunately, we have overpumping by agriculture and illegal wells. Minimal cooperation between municipalities inhibits finding joint solutions to water issues, and minimal management of rivers. Food security. In 2013, 90% of cereal crops were lost due to weather like hail or flooding. Also, the inconsistent weather patterns cause havoc with the plant cycle. Agricultural practices. Modern agriculture uses GMO plants. These require heavy machinery, more water, and synthetic chemicals that destroy the soil and pollute our aquifers. In Cyprus, agriculture accounts only for 1.9% of the GDP, while it uses around 90% of our fresh groundwater. Soil erosion. Topsoil is the productive part of the soil. With the hot summers, the winds blow away our topsoil, and in winter, with the heavy rainfall, the topsoil is being eroded. As it stands, according to experts, in one generation, about 25 years, the Cyprus landscape will be like Syria or Lebanon. Additional challenges facing Cyprus are uncertainty, the political uncertainty with the upcoming solution, and banking recovering after the 2013 economic collapse. Low growth, limited financing, non-performing loans, multiplier effect, whereby if people have no work, as you see, unemployment is 15.6%, there is also a lack of cash flow. Brain drain. The lack of opportunities has led to an exodus of great Cypriot minds staying away or leaving Cyprus. With that, their knowledge base and their capital for generation go elsewhere. Regional issues. Positive, we've had much more tourism this year due to the events of Turkey and Egypt. Yet, we still have issues in the Middle East. On a global level, according to Theory U developed by Otto Scharmer, senior lecturer at MIT and co-founder of the Presencing Institute, there exists a deeper reasoning behind these challenges. There are three disruptive powers: the ecological divide, the social divide, and the spiritual divide. The ecological divide originates from the disconnection between ourselves and nature. The social divide originates from our disconnection between ourselves and others around us, while the spiritual divide originates from the disconnection between ourself and our higher self. Is it possible to change this? Yes. Let's take a look. Albert Einstein once said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Therefore, let us put aside all our current issues and systems and look at introducing the new resilient economy. Establishing the vision. Our vision is a resilient Cyprus that consists of systemic, multifunctional solutions that are win-win for the environment and the economy. What do we mean by resilience? Resilience, beyond sustainable. A system that is capable of withstanding shocks, such as a banking crisis, climate change, or external influences. Let us observe the most resilient system known to man, nature. What has nature got to teach us? When we look into nature and observe, we find very interesting characteristics that we can duplicate when developing our solutions. As below, so above. The foundation of nature is the soil. The patterns we observe in the soil are also found throughout nature. The soil food web. Here you see on the left the plants. They're exuding sugars, proteins and carbs. They attract aerobic bacteria and fungi that in turn provide a shield for the roots, yet are eaten by the protozoa, which then excrete bioavailable nutrients for the plants. So as you can see here, there is a nonlinear relationship between the different parties, yet they are actually all interconnected. So what this shows us is that within the system there's ethics and integrity, systems and subsystems, they remain in balance, it's auto-managing, very resilient, multiple functions, multiple benefits and adds value, zero waste, there's communication, soil structure, and everything works together locally. Let us observe now our economic evolution and see how we can apply these principles. Our economic models have been evolving over the centuries, starting from a hunter-gatherer of self-sufficiency with a communal regard for survival, to the agricultural revolution, leading to a state-centric capitalism using slavery and serfdom, of needs-driven authoritarian leadership, currency based on precious metals. The first industrial revolution of free market mass consumption, markets and competition, and increasing labor standards and currency against gold standards, to today, the second industrial revolution of automation, networks and negotiation, and increased labor security and non-secure financial system. Where do we want to go next? As Buckminster Fuller once said, the best way to predict the future is to design it. We are currently observing trends from society and academia that indicate a shift in consciousness toward an emerging resilient society. This would lead us to the third industrial revolution with human-centric technologies that work with a global viewpoint and consciousness for a better collective good. Co-creative and collaborative networks sharing common resources using awareness-based collective action. The financial system of localized and cultural capital. The emerging trendsetters for change. The Blue Economy by Gunter Pauli. Smart Grid. The Circular Economy. Rapid prototyping and 3D printing. Social networks. Socially responsible businesses. A push against multinationals and mainstream. Turning towards sustainable farming. Cradle to cradle. Transparent banking. Startups. Microfinancing. Bitcoin. Uber taxi. Car sharing. And community-supported agriculture. The real voyage of discovery consists not in the exploration of new landscapes, but to see with new eyes. As we develop this new framework of direction, certain principles need to be set in place, of which the two founding principles stand out. Ethics at the core. If we do not have ethics, we compromise. And impact, life-affirming action from a centered space. The resilient economy is to develop our human economies in harmony with nature. Guidelines. Ethics at the core. This is people care, environment, community, wealth distribution. Integrates systems. Autopoiesis, this is self-managing. Zero waste, we look at what outputs can become inputs. Resilient, this is done by multiple inputs and outputs, benefits and biodiversity. It's inspired by and mimics nature. It creates jobs, keeps the wealth local, creates diversity, and provides for a need. A resilient economy will include environmental ecology, ecoforestry, redesigning our forests to capture water, produce biodiversity, and provide an environment for wild animals to be reintroduced. Agroecology. Agroecology is the conscious design and maintenance of agricultural productive systems which have the diversity, stability, and resilience of natural ecosystems. Community and industry. Living spaces, architecture, banking, community, industry, commerce, and tourism, all designed to work within the stated principles with value added for the community and nature. And finally, marine conservation, the protection and preservation of ecosystems in the sea, productive marine forests that allow the marine life to thrive, and therefore the marine industry. Our proposed plan toward a resilient Cyprus. After identifying the local needs, we integrate a complete solution based on the resilient principles and proven examples from around the world. After locating an area with the community willing to support the change, we divide the surrounding areas into zones. Zone 1, seen on the left in green, this is our reforestation area, used for water capture and to cool the climate. Here we replant various indigenous types of trees and bushes. It's off limits to human and domestic animal use. Zone 2 is our productive agricultural area based on agroecology practices, water capture, food forests, integrated farming techniques, and agro-production. Zone 3, this is our rural village area and eco-industry, with zero waste, asset homes for quality living, water capture, energy production and storage, and resilient economic activities. Zone 4, this is our regenerative marine area, high multi-product production and eco-fishing. Let us look at the ethics and impact overview of each of these zones and their inputs and outputs. Zone 1 is the reforestation area. Here we'll be using polyculture of indigenous or endemic trees and plants, water capture techniques, reintroduction of local wild animals, creating a nature reserve if possible, and increasing the soil organic matter. The advantages of increasing the soil organic matter is that 1% increase can absorb 150,000 litres per hectare. This also enhances fertility and productivity of the soil, reduces nutrient leaching, and resists erosion. Let us review the inputs on the left. The Forestry Department, military youth, jobs, volunteers, EU funds, and the absorption of atmospheric carbon. On the other hand, outputs are oxygen, different products from mushrooms and bees and their added value products, and wood and pine resin. It also provides research opportunities for reforestation of the region, educational tourism, microclimate, therefore cooler and wetter areas, and social development for schools and young foresters. Zone 2 contains our fruit trees and crops. There are productive agricultural areas that involve non-tilling or shallow tilling methods, agroecology design techniques including water capture, like gabions and swales, intercropping, polyculture, and crop rotation, integrated farming and waste management systems. For example, on the right we have an aquaponic system. This is a highly productive system, saving 90% of water in comparison to normal agriculture. It is the hybrid of aquaculture, which is fish farming, and hydroponics, which is farming, soilless farming. Central you have our fruit forests and you have the animals, and the reason we don't till is because tilling damages the soil structure and therefore the soil organic matter. It also destroys the soil, especially when used with agricultural techniques. Worldwide, over 20% of land has been degraded or eroded. And lastly, it also releases carbon dioxide from the soil back into the atmosphere. For example, deep tilling has been shown to release 579 pounds per acre in a 24-hour period. It's been well known that a nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. Observing the inputs and outputs, we have students or woofers, people working on the land for free, universities for research, agricultural department, jobs, volunteers, EU funds, and atmospheric carbon sequestration. Outputs are oxygen, aquaponics, which provide fish and fresh vegetables, produce, a variety of different produce depending on the region. Again, agricultural opportunities for agriculture in the region, educational tourism, incubator startup opportunities for innovative ecological products, and social development for schools and young farmers. Observing Zone 3. Zone 3 is reserved for rural living, ecological industries, animal grazing, water capture in the form of mini dams. It's designed to incorporate a high-tech smart grid with solar wind grid nearby, community space for a few startup companies, services, and an industry partner whose waste will benefit the community. It could also provide regional services such as a slaughterhouse, oil press, dairy product production, and canning services. For example, we have on the top left again our aquaponics, centrally the eco-designed houses based on nature. Top right is the wastewater cleaning using natural methods. Bottom right would be the industrial park, and bottom left is the smart grid. Inputs are biomimicry agriculture, solar and wind technologies, jobs, volunteers, and EU funds. Regarding outputs, we have a smart grid to manage energy production for sale. We have value-added products such as cakes, soups, and so forth. Income-generating homes that produce more electricity than needed. Farm areas with livestock producing meat, dairy, and eggs. Research opportunities towards farming and architecture in the region. Energy. Water biofiltration, algae production that can also produce energy and feed for livestock. Social development in the form of education and young minds. And finally, Zone 4. Zone 4 is our marine conservation area. This includes 3D farming of multiple products such as seaweed, mussels, and other marine life. Also incorporates a no-fish zone that will enhance fish stocks and allow for rejuvenation of the marine life in the area, and also introduce a new form of fishing vessel. For example, below is a 30-meter catamaran that is solar and wind powered, that does not freeze fish but keeps the fish cold, saving on water, and also scans fish for pregnancy. Any fish that are pregnant are then returned to the sea. 14 of these fishing vessels have been operating on the Moroccan coast, and the fish stocks in that area have returned to the levels of 1950. Let us look again. The inputs include youth, fishery departments, jobs, EU funds, and can absorb up to 5 times the amount of carbon as land-based plants. Outputs are rebuilding the reef, recreating a nature reserve, different types of products, research opportunities for marine development of the region, jobs, and it can prevent dead zones. The plan over a generation. First, a test trial village, located centrally, later expanding to 5 associated resilient villages in the north and 11 associated villages in the south. We expect to reforest 65% of the island in a polyculture forest, reduce evapotranspiration down to about 70%, 80% of the island waste is back into circulation, 85% of fresh produce supplied via agroecology farms, fruit, forests and organic food, water, food and job security, generative homes, research models for resilience. Our plan over the next generation is to set up a first trial village. This would be located centrally and then later expand into 5 associated resilient villages in the north and 11 in the south. These villages will be responsible for reforestation projects, and therefore we expect a polyculture forest covering about 65% of the island. This we expect to reduce 70% the evapotranspiration, which is now at 86%, and introduce a new microclimate. 80% of the island waste will be back in circulation. Meanwhile, 85% of fresh produce will be supplied via agroecology farms. This includes fruit forests and organic food. We will also have water, food and job security on the island, regenerative homes, and be a research model for resilience. We will also restructure the business plan from the typical chain to an ecosystem. On the left, we find the chain whereby the farmer has only 2 choices typically to sell to, either the commercial buyer who is looking for the best price or the local market. The commercial buyer then sells on to the warehouse and commodities broker and so forth, each of whom are looking for the best price. This does not serve the farmer. On the right hand side, however, the farmers, each with their own individual products, can provide their product to a regional co-op center. The regional co-op center then is responsible for getting the best price to pass on to the farmer, whilst having multiple outlets to sell to. The impact potential: providing a blueprint for resilience for nations in the region, developing a team to deliver projects in the region, becoming an exporter of excellent horticulture in the region, carbon negative practice, reducing climate change, offers a new form of tourism, repopulation of villages, increasing rural economy and restoration construction, and reducing the pressure on the city, research and development as well as high tech for the region, and long-term data gathering. General indicators around the world: the China Green Corridor, Africa Green Corridor, President Putin of Russia in December stating that Russia will become the biggest producer of organic food, the EU rural development policy stating they need improvement of competitiveness of agriculture, the sustainable management of natural resources and climate action, and a balanced territorial development of rural areas. 38 countries, including some of the EU, have also banned GMO crops, and it's a growing trend. And Washington State University summarizes 40 years of scientific research. Organic agriculture is key to feeding the world. Conclusion: we have the potential to create a legacy for the future generations of Cyprus. A systemic approach to a resilient Cyprus will bring together the people of the island under a common intention and connect the public and the government in a way that will stand as an example to the countries worldwide. Cyprus will become the leading example of resilience in the region. Thank you.